Good morning, LinkedIn, HubSpot Nation. Welcome to another edition of Let's Build Profoundly, where we are introducing our early Profoundly pros during our launch sequence leading up to the kickoff on March 6th. Joining us today, Mr. Gabe. How you doing, man?
Doing great. Hey, thanks for having me.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Excited to chat today. It's fun in this ecosystem already. Just the openness of HubSpot themselves and getting feedback constantly, but also seeing people go back and forth between the ecosystem and HubSpot team. Always interesting to see all sides and hear about all sides of the ecosystem. Excited to chat with you today as a former HubSpotter. And I think it makes sense to start there in terms of, what is your HubSpot expertise and how did you get it?
Yeah, so I kind of became an accidental agency, but most people do that in the reverse order of what I did it. Usually they're working in a role and then say, I've kind of had enough of this and I want to start it on my own. I actually started my agency when I was a freshman in college. And I'm gonna date myself here a little bit, but we got to go back to 2001 when
Wow.
websites were like just booming at that time, right? And I was like this computer nerd, always interested in IT and networking and computing, and I just started playing around like building websites for myself and some friends and things like that. And then one day an architecture firm came and was like, "Hey, can you build a website for us?" And they're like, "We'll pay you $25 an hour to do it." And you got to remember, most of my friends were making like $7, $8 an hour at this time. And I was like, heck yes, let's build this website. And so I built a website for them. And then they referred me to somebody, and then they referred me, and then that just became like my thing during college. And then afterwards, I already, went through college, finished that, and then came out of that. I had like a full client base. So I'm like, well, I guess I'll just continue doing this because I already had like a full client base by that point. And, continued that. I pretty much like straight out of college hired my first employee. And then we just kind of kept growing. And then 2012 actually is then where we started to use HubSpot. It was end of 2011, 2012. I signed up for HubSpot, hired a marketing director. Some people may know Luke's in the Summerfield,
Yeah.
and
Awesome, dude.
so yeah, great. And I pretty much told him, I'm like, hey, I just bought HubSpot, like go figure this out. And at that time, it was way easier. Inbound marketing was way easier at that point. It was actually like a cheat code, honestly, at that point, because it worked so incredibly well. It was like you had just found some hack, and it was so easy, and it was still relatively new. And those were definitely the fun days. And just kind of kept evolving that. The COS then came out. For I don't A lot of people may not know this, but HubSpot's CMS was called the COS, Content Optimization System, at one point. And that had just launched, and we became one of the first people to ever use the CMS, or COS, I guess, at that point. And so we got really good at that, jumped right on board. We were doing a lot of like open source web development up until that point, and then really decided at that point, like, this is the future, and went all in. And it was different because they had a few things that like nobody else had, right? So some things that are common nowadays, but at that point it was like revolutionary to have a SaaS CMS. Like, that wasn't a thing. Now it's everywhere, right? But at that point, it wasn't a thing. It was always like self-hosted, on-prem, whatever you're gonna do, or just use a hosting company, whatever. So having that and having software that you didn't have to maintain were like big selling points, right? But then on top of that, the bigger thing was the smart CRM, and that's really when they introduced the kind of smart CRM slash CMS connection, and having all that data available and being able to do personalization and smart content. Also, something like revolutionary, being able to A/B test and being able to do personalization at that point was like extremely difficult. And so, that's what really hooked us. We got really good at that. We actually built for HubSpot the first designers.hubspot.com site ever back in the day. And then eventually we got acquired by another agency because we got really good at the COS and they needed some help there. And so I essentially came in, rebuilt their entire web development team, rebuilt all the processes, everything goes with that, kind of helped lead the agency. Then we started a RevOps thing because RevOps was starting to become a thing. I don't know, this probably would have been 2016. I don't remember the timeline anymore, but once RevOps was just starting to become a term, built out, same thing, built out that department, built out our RevOps, all our processes, how we do things. And so got really good at RevOps too then, and onboarding clients and kind of setting up portals and integrations. And then HubSpot came knocking at my door. And guess who it was? It was Luke. Luke actually reached out to me and recruited me to go work for HubSpot. He actually became my boss. I was his boss. Now he was my boss. And then I started at HubSpot where I was doing go-to-market work. And then eventually that transitioned into product marketing work where as a senior PMM. Spent 2.5 years there and just really sharpened my skills on messaging and which, it was things you always do already with websites and website concepting and so on. But was able to really sharpen that, launched Content Hub. CMS Hub naturally was my hub, which turned into Content Hub and totally relaunched Content Hub. Had a great time doing that, worked with a lot of great people, and then just decided it was time for that journey to end. And then here I am today.
Man, that is a journey. And I think that goes without saying. Like, this is the kind of, if anybody's going to know anything about HubSpot CMS, Gabe is at the top of the list. I'm curious. I love talking about, especially people that have been in it for so long, this evolution of HubSpot in the last 5 years. And it's not very often you get to talk to people who have been so focused on CMS and the Content Hub side of things. So really excited to dig in there because at the same time, there's custom objects showing up and really just this intense focus on RevOps coming out of like in 2020. I remember that was also around the time where we went from like to use CMS, it was either $300 a month or $1,000 a month, right? And it was such a chasm to cross for businesses when you're competing against WordPress, which is free, right? And then I saw like the free and the basic level, and I was like, oh, yes, here we go. Like HubSpot, the only way it makes sense to do this is if they're serious about competing like with the WordPresses of the world. What was your like how were you receiving that shift? Maybe you were an advisor, like you advised a little bit on how to make that shift. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, I came in right as they were launching free. So I had nothing to do with advising on that shift because we were just launching free at that point. But I was then kind of carrying that story forward. But look, I mean, for HubSpot, the sweet spot is mid-market. And with the CMS, that's primarily who we were targeting was mid-market. And then when we opened up Starter and Free, it just opened the door more to SMBs. Something people had been asking for a long time, right? Can you please make this more accessible? Like give us an option, down to Starter, down to Free. And essentially that just allows, for HubSpot, that's a great like lead gen strategy. It's a great way to upsell into bigger products. So strong product led growth strategy on the bottom end. And they're really just kind of taking that three-tiered approach technically, right? Our sweet spot was mid-market. We're opening up the lower end to SMBs and also opening up the higher end with some of the higher end features to enterprise. But you'll notice too, for instance, memberships was always locked away at enterprise, something for a long time that even when I was on the other end before HubSpot, I always wanted to see it pro. And then finally that got, with the launch of Content Hub, we were finally able to bring that down to pro and actually update the membership feature and make a lot of people happy there. So yeah, there's definitely been an evolution. I mean, even just from when it first launched the CMS to where it is today, there's been a huge evolution and just making developer tools a lot better, making access to data better with like GraphQL and custom objects, like you were saying, and just that just opens up the possibilities of what you can do with the CMS so much more. And now with memberships really starting to improve, that continues to kind of further open that path and that door as well.
Yeah. Myself, I'm in memberships almost every day at this point in some portal, and I've been able to talk to Ankur about that and to see that progress alongside podcasts and video improvements and all this stuff. Like truly a content hub that CMS is now a part of has been very exciting to see improve since last year. So thank you for your efforts.
Oh yeah, of course. Shout out to Ankur too, man. I loved working with him. He was we had a lot of great conversations on memberships and different ways to position and strategy around what features to launch and so on. So
Yeah.
it's definitely in good hands with him.
Yeah, for sure. Just had an episode a couple weeks ago. Let's build HubSpot podcasts, and the ability to migrate a podcast into HubSpot is pretty mind blowing when you think about the logistics there. So lots of progress being made there. I'm curious, like in your role, and I promise we'll get to something about you outside of HubSpot at some point. But like the education, like from a not, I correct me if I'm wrong. I kind of equate product marketing, like one of the primary roles is to educate on what the product is, why it's important, things like that. As this happens, this move from CMS to Content Hub alongside Marketing Hub, like how were there any key moments or factors like that you were trying to make sure happened like as you launched to help people understand really the value of doing this?
Yeah, I mean it was a big shift, right? We were a CMS previously and now we're a content tool. So we really had to reposition ourselves in the market and then re-educate the entire market that hey, this isn't just a CMS product anymore. Yes, we still have a world-class CMS, but we are now a product to create and manage content and we're going to be able to help you with that. And so introducing so many new things like podcasts, like content remix, like, AI enabled blog creation, all these different tools that are now in the product, which are very focused on now being able to help you very efficiently create content for many different channels because that's just where marketing is. It's just become so much more complex than it used to be. I used to just have to, worry about a couple channels. It was like lead nurturing, putting out a landing page, sending out a few emails, like having a early stage offer and a middle stage offer, and then kind of your late stage offer. And it was like very simple. Now you got like a million channels to worry about. You have different types of content you need to position to each of those channels. And so it's much more difficult than it used to be, and it's extremely difficult for marketers. And so that's really where Content Hub was born out of, was let's make this really easy for marketers. They're struggling. They got a lot of channels to go through. There's AI now, and a lot of them don't know how to use AI. Let's make it like very opinionated and easy to use for them. And so, yeah, it was a big shift in not just educating the market, but educating 10,000 people within a company as well, as to like, hey, we're launching this thing. Here's what you need to know, right? Let's here's the story and so on. And so it's not just educating the public, it's partners, it's the public, it's customers, it's the whole internal team. It's a big effort. There's like hundreds of people who are involved in that effort to do that. And so there's a lot more to it than I think people realize.
Yeah. And I always try to remind myself, and this is where I think like part of the goal of Profoundly and why we're, excited to have, people like you on the platform is that like HubSpot, and from my manufacturing background, I refer to them as the manufacturer in this case. Like, there's only so much they can do for lots of different reasons, boundaries, but also bandwidth. Like they've got to focus on the product and what it does in a black and white perspective. All the rest of us outside can and need to focus on how to use it, how to apply it for different businesses in different spaces. So it's interesting to, help people on the outside. And for me, myself, I remember being at Inbound last year. And since I'm from manufacturing and I love the rest of the hubs, right? Like, and I'm seeing the gap of Content Hub content, and the new stuff basically hasn't made it into the academy in all the different ways, and like Commerce Hub. And I'm like, all right, why aren't they focusing on this stuff? But then it was a couple months after, and if anybody wants to learn about real life usage of HubSpot, just go over to the HubSpot Reddit. You will see how people think about HubSpot from in the rawest of ways. And when I see people coming in there and still asking about how to do emails, it clicked for me. It's like, okay, HubSpot's got to keep talking about Marketing Hub. Like there's still people that don't know it exists and don't know how to use it. So it helped me understand that approach. But let's take a step back and outside of HubSpot and also outside of websites, because it sounds like you gave us a little bit of background. You've been doing websites for a while. Outside of those two things, who is Gabe?
Who is Gabe? Are we talking professional or personal level?
Wherever you want to take it. Trying to get
I
to know
mean,
you here.
professional level, I'm a storyteller, I'm a collaborator, I'm a teacher, educator, and I just love tech. I've been like, ever since AI came out, oh man, I've been just loving it. There's so many cool things you can do. And like, for instance, I just wrote a homepage the other day, and that probably used to take me like 8 hours, right? To like really put that together. I was able to do that in 2 hours, right? With Claude. I love using Claude. So just trained a project and got it set up. And now, as I'm writing the rest of my pages, it's going like so much quicker. So same thing with just image generation and training LoRa models to generate exactly what you want, and even having fun. Have fun. I generated a bunch of images of myself and like crazy, doing just crazy things. So yeah, just enjoy, and I just really enjoy working with people and helping people, all kinds of different sizes. So on a personal level, yeah, actually, you can see my sweatshirt here. I'm a big grappler. I've been doing that for 18 years, actually longer than that. I've been doing Brazilian Jiu Jitsu for 18 years. I've been grappling since I wrestled in college, and then transitioned Brazilian Jiu Jitsu. Still compete actively, although I'm on a little break right now because I'm doing another thing I really enjoy, which is I bought a house about a year and a half ago. It's totally gutted. Been remodeling that, so getting close there. We're doing insulation and drywall right now, and kind of getting close to the end finally. So my wife is I can't wait for that to be done. Yeah,
Right.
and I got three little girls who do gymnastics and also do jujitsu, and love gardening, love cooking, big cook, big foodie. Before this house, I used to post a lot on Instagram, which would just be everything I'm cooking, and had a lot of my friends and family follow that, and getting very jealous and wanting dinner invites. Yeah,
Okay. Okay. So let's say big guest is on the schedule of showing up. Are there any go-to meals that you're like, yep, I know this will impress whoever shows up at the door?
man, I love smoking. A lot of different things on the smoker that I can make. So I love doing that. I actually love cooking a lot of different Mexican food too. Actually, a lot of different stuff. I was like exploring, a lot of oh man, I'm like blanking on the name of it, but this tomatillo soup, a pozole, that's what they call them, that I love making. And a lot of it too is just what we grow in the garden. So a lot of what we grow, I think, can naturally vibe with what I cook, and like to have a really big garden. And now I'm excited too because at the new house we're gonna have an even bigger garden and a lot of fruit trees on top of it too. So really into that aspect of it.
There you go. Man,
Oh,
sounds
and
like
and we used to tap maple syrup too, and because we had maple syrup trees, but now I'm disappointed because I don't have any maple syrup trees on this property. I'm gonna have to find some people with trees and then get the sap from them and then share it. But I think we're gonna get some honeybees since we can't have those, and we'll get the honey and some sap then.
man, I like it. All original, all or New York, not organic in the, yeah, I just won't go down that rabbit hole, but all like sourced, first party sourced. Is that a fair way to say it if I'm trying to?
Yeah, I mean, it's really rewarding to grow your own food and just have your kids go into the garden and just start picking stuff off and eating it. And yeah, it's all 100% organic. And my wife's pushing for the chickens, which I don't want the chickens. I'd actually love to have chickens. I just don't want the responsibility,
Right.
want to be able to go take a vacation and not have to worry about anything else.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Well, thanks for sharing. And we'll get back to some other kinds of value for the space. Really excited for this event coming up on March 6th. Um, we've got at this Profoundly Kickoff, got 8 awesome tracks: HubSpot admin, integration dev, web dev, RevOps, marketer, AI, founder, and solopreneur. We'll get to your talk in a second, but I'm curious, outside of web dev, any of those that you gravitate towards?
Yeah, honestly, one of my favorite things to do is actually onboarding. A lot of people don't like doing it, but if you've ever done a HubSpot onboarding, like their standard onboarding, it's very basic. It's just meant to kind of show you the very basics of the tools, no really customization. But most people, they need much more than that. They need somebody to kind of look at their business and say, please help me understand what I should be setting up. And you see a lot of people who, it's very common, look, I'm just going to try and get this set up on my own, and then they end up creating a bit of a mess. And it's not a mess right away, it's a mess when they finally start using the platform and getting more mature with it, and then they're like, oh, we've created a mess here. We got 5 of the same properties here, and nothing's organized, nothing's labeled, nothing's talking to each other. And so I like kind of coming in and helping advise on, hey, here's how you should set this up. Here, I can help you with some of it if you like, that type of thing, and kind of doing that custom onboarding. And then of course, I can then take it and help with RevOps. I can help you with, website strategy is a lot of what I do as well. Just being able to help with what should that website messaging be? Like, how do we explain our business? How do we properly set up our information architecture? What platform should we be on? What tools do we need? What integrations? How should we be looking at this? And excuse me, just being able to create that revenue generation machine on your website specifically. So do a lot with web strategy. And then of course there's tons of people doing RevOps. So of course anything related to RevOps as well. But that's generally where I kind of like to specialize my services, really onboarding, anything related to web strategy, web development, RevOps, and of course anything PMM related, but PMM's typically not a role that gets contracted out. Typically there's too much to be done outside of maybe some contract positioning that people might need.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. And definitely speaks to, like, what you just described speaks to this expansion of the platform. And I've been talking to George a lot about this over the last year, and Lucy too, about like there's going to be some fun panels about what is an admin and what is a HubSpot admin. And it's interesting, like the hard word is not the admin part, it's the HubSpot part, right? Like every business looks at and uses HubSpot differently. And like that's where I love your, like, the focus on onboarding and treating that as a very special moment to either get it right or not right, we'll say, has major impact down the road. And I think as we see, HubSpot try to solve for just the exploding user base right now alongside the ecosystem, which cannot possibly keep up from a headcount perspective. Like I appreciate their efforts, at least, of doing things like everboarding and maybe pulling back on some of the, dare I say, some of the check the box activities that were available for people that often ended up in the messes. So I appreciate anyone willing to really hone in on this inflection point of, you just bought HubSpot. Now what? Please don't say you just want to blast out some emails. Like, that's not why you bought HubSpot. And to that point, you're going to be doing a great session, as you mentioned, like bringing your website expertise in how to really create these personalized experiences. Really excited for that talk. Can you give us a sneak peek?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, in today's day and age, it used to be like personalization was always like a nice to have. Like, and if you look at marketing maturity levels, it used to be like at the top, right? If you look at kind of what I call like kind of similar to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, you have your kind of marketing hierarchy of needs. And usually personalization was like very at the top, right? It was like the last thing you would typically do, right? It's like we got all our basics done. Now let's optimize further. But as we kind of come into this world of AI and AI doing personalization at scale and just like your Amazons and your recommendation engines, and people have just got accustomed to that. So it's starting to kind of come down in the hierarchy of needs more and more. And as you look at what's working these days, and personalization isn't just about, okay, let's change a few buttons here, let's change some copy. It's more like, it's like you were talking about earlier, you're doing a session on portals, right? That's part of personalization, like having a custom portal to that specific user that's going to be filled with content that is specific to them on their journey in the buying process is also personalization. And that's part of kind of what I want to talk about is the different levels of personalization, the strategy behind it, right? Like how not to be creepy with personalization, the right way to do personalization, and kind of what you need to have. And a lot of it is kind of like core. Like if you don't have good data, you're not going to be able to do good personalization, right? So it starts with having good data. It starts with having some rules of how to go about personalization, how to structure it, and then how to actually execute it on HubSpot. And it's going to be 20, 25 minutes, so it's just going to be getting into all the kind of key areas, but then just kind of giving you the information you need versus getting super deep into the weeds. And so it'll be very strategic, and then show a lot of the possibilities of what you can do. And so super excited for it.
Yeah, that's our challenge, is how to tackle such a topic in like 20 minutes. But I have faith, and I've seen you do it before, so I know it's going to be high value. And this event is all about just opening the door. Like there's going to be lots of events, lots of content coming from people like yourself, and it's exciting to have you aboard. So if anybody's out there wanting to register for that event and see that from Gabe, head over to profound.ly. Big old CTA on the front page that makes it easy to sign up for the event. If you want to be a pro like Gabe, you can click on the Give HubSpot Help button that is right next to the Get HubSpot Help button to sign up and join us. Gabe, thanks so much for joining us today.
Hey, thanks so much for having me. I had a lot of fun.
Yes, indeed. And until next time, folks, we'll see you tomorrow morning. Have a great day.
Yep.